Hello, everybody out there in podcast land. Great to have you aboard. Welcome to the latest episode of the Fortress of Rock. I am your host, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Episode 110, taping here on September the 22nd, 2023. News of the world. Our first segment, as always. If you've been hanging out with us for the last couple years, you know the pattern. And boy, I'm not going to gloat. I am not going to gloat, but a little teeny tiny part of me wants to gloat. Now, of course, last week we discussed breaking news with Jann Wenner, the evil scumbag of all time, who has done nothing but try to destroy rock and roll and prop up his few friends in the world. Of course, that including Bruce Springsteen and Jon Landau, but we'll get to them later. We, of course, talked about the fact that Jann Wenner was caught in an interview, given a chance to back off of controversial comments, doubles down, and now he is paying the price. Jann Wenner, after a very, very brief, less than 30-minute meeting with the board of directors of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, removed from the institution that he helped to found and create. And as I mentioned, the one dissenting vote outside, of course, of Jann Wenner himself was Bruce Springsteen's manager, Jon Landau, because, of course, Jann Wenner helped propel Bruce Springsteen and, in turn, Jon Landau into superstardom and massive amounts of wealth. And, of course, we have got the reactions now coming in from the rock and roll community, but surprisingly, I'm not hearing as much negativity and dissent as I thought I would, and it's disappointing. Now, I'm not going to go out and do a deep dive into the cesspool that is social media. I'm not going to look at John Bon Jovi's Facebook page or Joe Elliott from Def Leppard's Facebook page to check out what all the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members have to say about this. The one that matters to me, Living Colour put out a statement, beautiful, gorgeous, well-written statement. Of course, you guys know I love Living Colour, the greatest, I hate to even label them, greatest African-American rock band of all time. They're one of my top 10 rock bands, period, of all time. And of course, they took great exception to the comments that Jann Wenner made about Stevie Wonder in particular. But I'll tell you this. And of course, if you guys haven't figured it out after 2+ years of listening to the Fortress of Rock, I'm a bit of a cynic. I do not think that people have their best intentions at heart, day in and day out. Yes, we are capable of some great things, some wonderful things, some generous things. But unfortunately, I think the majority, for the most part, think only of themselves. And what have you done for me lately? So what's going to happen now? My prediction. Because again, I'm not going to gloat about the fact that I have told you since the start of this podcast that Jann Wenner was a dirtbag. No. That's beneath me. But what I will tell you is now this instance of idiocy from Jann Wenner will actually accomplish what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has set out to do over the last decade plus. Because now, with the stupid statements that Jann Wenner made about black music artists and female music artists, all you are going to see is, again, in this society that we live in, an overreaction. So bands, again, that deserve to be in the Rock Hall of Fame, like REO Speedwagon, Boston, Styx, they're not going to even get a snowball's chance in Hades of getting in now, because you're going to see an overreaction, and it's going to be women and minority acts all getting in to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the next 2 to 3 years, bare minimum. That's my prediction, and I'll stick by it, because this is how our society works. This is how short-sighted, simple-minded people think. They can't just say, Jann Wenner's wrong, he's an idiot, let's move on. They're going to have to overreact. The pendulum is going to have to swing too far again the other way. And so instead of putting the bands that really matter and really deserve to be in the Rock Hall of Fame, getting them into that monstrosity, that mistake by the lake in Cleveland, now you're going to go too far the other way. Even though we just had a glorious, fantastic class a couple years ago. Pat Benatar, lots of women. And the Rock Hall of Fame has done a great job of showcasing R&B, old school, minority acts, influencers. But again, they're going to go too far the other way, because this is how stupid people in power think. They don't want the pressure. They don't want the responsibility. They don't want to have to make the tough choices. So they're going to take the easy way out. So what Jann Wenner has basically done is he's made it easy for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to degrade themselves even more. Rant over. I know you're all going, whew, thank God. 7.5 minutes of that. All right, let's move on to the rest of the news of the world in rock and roll. Kind of a mixed bag here, so I'm going to be all over the place for the next 15 to 20 minutes, so bear with me. Most of it's touring news. Let's start off with a couple bands that I just saw recently, Extreme and Living Colour. The Thicker Than Blood tour, the second leg, you knew this was coming. There was no way it was going to be 1 month's worth of dates in the U.S. The second leg will be 22 more dates, January and February of 2024. We have a new song from U2. Possibly, maybe. Of course, we've talked about the fact that they're going to kick off the opening of this ridiculous monstrosity in Las Vegas. What is it, the Sphere? Yes, impressive. I get it. I've seen the videos. Atomic City. Quite possibly, maybe, coming up here as the next big U2 song. There was a video shoot and an intimate performance in Las Vegas, an unannounced show. So maybe we're getting some new music from U2 very, very soon, before they kick off this ridiculous, expensive, overindulgent residency in Las Vegas. Oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry. Do you guys know who G3 are? If you're a guitar player, you know who G3 are. Now, G3 has not been together for a long, long time, but they are three guitar gods. Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and Eric Johnson are reconvening after decades apart. Right now, a West Coast tour only for 13 dates, January and February of 2024. Now, you want to talk about a band later on in their years who've decided, let's start going again and let's just blow the doors off? We might have the answer to that. Bachman-Turner Overdrive currently have 6 dates scheduled, but with press releases, with social media, they are saying more shows are on the way, and they are getting ready to write and record new music. So, Bachman-Turner Overdrive might still be alive and kicking. We'll see if these plans flesh out into 2024, if we get a tour across the nation, across all of North America. We shall see. Now, I will say, I don't want to say this is a sad moment for rock. In a way, it is. I'm going to hedge here. In a way, it is. Because anytime you lose not a prolific band, but a significant band, doesn't matter what era they're from. I was never a big fan of Kix. To me, they were on the lower tier of the hair metal bands from the 80s. But they have stuck it out throughout the years. They played their final live show back on September the 17th in Maryland, 18-song set. So Kix is now, again, you know how this goes with rock and roll, but Kix is now supposedly officially done playing live shows. Bryan Adams is going to release a box set live at the Royal Albert Hall, coming out December the 8th of this year. It will feature 3 shows with him playing in their entirety 3 of his classic albums from May of 2022. Interestingly enough, Reckless is not one of the 3 albums. I think we're looking at Cuts Like a Knife, Into the Fire, and Waking Up the Neighbors. But if you want to invest your mortgage payment for the current month on the box set live at the Royal Albert Hall, feel free to do that. I won't. Blink-182. We talked about the fact the new album, One More Time, maybe possibly coming out. Rumors about Blink-182 making a comeback of sorts with the original lineup. So One More Time is the name of the new album. It will be out October the 20th. They have got 2 songs from that album out there already for you to enjoy. Now, I am not a big Blink-182 guy at all, so don't wait with bated breath for me to announce those 2 songs and talk about reviewing them on a future episode, because I'm not going to. I'm really not. They had a couple good songs, but they just didn't do it for me. Finally, wrapping up news of the world, Iron Maiden's lead singer, Bruce Dickinson. Sometimes things surprise you, sneak up on you a little bit. I did not realize how many solo albums Bruce Dickinson has out there. Have I listened to them? No. Does the idea, the concept interest me? Yes. Well, he is breaking away from Iron Maiden temporarily to put out another solo album, The Mandrake Project. This will be out in early 2024. Now, hopefully, selfishly, for my sake, he will get back out on the road with Iron Maiden at some point in the next year or so, because they are at the top of my bucket list in terms of bands I have never seen live that I need to get out and see. But in the meantime, in early 2024, enjoy Bruce Dickinson's solo work. And that will do it for News of the World here. Segment 1, Friday night, September the 22nd, 2023. We're done with that, but episode 110 has a long, long ways to go. We'll take a quick break here, be back in about a minute, and we have a lot of new music to talk about in Breakdown, including the new album from Alice Cooper, new music from Brian Setzer, formerly of the Stray Cats, and if you want to mention it, the Brian Setzer Orchestra, and 3 new songs from the late, great Jimmy Buffett. So, again, give me 60 seconds to take a break. I'll be right back with new music in the Breakdown segment. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Fortress of Rock podcast with me, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Of course, that was segment 1, the News of the World, our tribute to Freddie Mercury and Queen, where we look back at the past week in rock and roll and all the news and all the controversies that you deserve to know about. Next up is the heart of the show, the meat and potatoes, Breakdown, where we are going to review all the new songs, all the new albums, all the new concert tours, the shows that I've seen personally. Stay tuned for that. Of course, we're now available on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Hang out, kids. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Segment 2 here on the Fortress of Rock with your host, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Episode 110, September the 22nd, 2023. Breakdown, Segment 2, our tribute to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. New music, new songs, concert reviews. Do not have a concert this week, but next week, melt your face off type stuff. We'll talk about that, of course, and wrap it up in segment 4. But for now, lots of new music to talk about, a plethora of new stuff. Kind of surprising that at this point in the year, mid-September, we're getting this much new music. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it. So we have got Alice Cooper's new album, Road, which is kind of a loose concept album. As you can tell by the title, it's about life on the road. Plays all of these songs with his touring band in the studio. The lyrics, of course, all tie into what you would expect. The long nights, the crazy nights. It's not so much about the interaction with the fans as it is what happens behind the scenes. The ego, the energy, the loneliness, the one night stands, what all of that entails. And I'm probably building it up a little bit more than I should, because in the end, even though it is, again, a loose, quote unquote, concept album, this is not The Wall. Okay. But as always, here on the Fortress of Rock, we will go track by track, 13 songs on road. Here we go. Track 1, I'm Alice. Of course, we've reviewed this song among a couple others here on the Fortress in the past few months. I'm Alice is the declaration. I don't want to say the ego-driven sonic cry that here I am, the big pompous, arrogant rock star, come and love me. Alice Cooper's not like that. He's more down to earth than that, so you got to take it for what it is. Maybe a little bit of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Now, is it a good song? It's a good song. It's a good song, not a great song. And then you go right into Welcome to the Show. Again, good, not great. Another song we've already reviewed. And then track 3 is All Over the World. Again, you can see with the titles of these songs, how it all ties into the whole touring mystique. Now, All Over the World, this is where the album hits a little bit of a speed bump. And I do think I heard horns. Yes, horns on All Over the World. Not the best effort on road. Now, track 4, The Dead Don't Dance, is a little bit better. Very good guitar work on it. Still not a great song. Track 5 is where things start to pick up again. Go Away. One of the stronger songs on the album. Of course, Alice Cooper singing about a one-night stand that just won't leave him alone. The lyrics are very, very good. Clever. A little sarcastic, a little desperate. Very, very good song. And then, of course, track 6, another song we've reviewed in the past, White Line Frankenstein, with Tom Morello on guitar. I've always said, love Tom Morello's guitar. He just needs to stop talking. Because every time he opens his mouth, he says something that upsets me and a lot of other people. And I'm not saying he's not entitled to his opinion, but you guys know my rant about celebrities and musicians and how they get their little bully pulpits and they get to sit in front of the cameras and sit in front of microphones and they get to spout their opinions about politics and their worldview more than we do. But again, their opinions are not more important than ours. No opinion is wrong. No opinion is wrong. Facts can be wrong, but no opinion can be wrong. It might be the most vile, disgusting viewpoint on something, but you are entitled to your opinion. It is not right. It is not wrong. So White Line Frankenstein, again, great guitar work from Tom Morello, fitting seamlessly into this theme, of course, about driving from town to town. And then, of course, with track 7, we go back to the clever lyrics about meeting women on the road that we just talked about in track 5, Go Away. Track 7, Big Boots. Yes, Big Boots. Although if you listen to the song, which I hope you will, you could replace the T with a B. Because I know, everybody knows when you listen to the song, that's what Alice is singing about. And again, it fits in the concept of the album. Rock stars partying after the show, or even stopping at a diner on the way to a show, libido's kicking in. There you go. Now we hit the second speed bump on Road. Notice how I said that, speed bump, tying in. Clever beyond belief, I know. Track 8 is Rules of the Road. I'm torn on this song. Part of me really kind of likes it, and part of me just wants to toss it in the disposal and grind it up. Just something about it doesn't feel original. Something about it doesn't feel good or right. And then track 9 is The Big Goodbye. Again, another mediocre song. Followed by Road Rats Forever. So 8, 9, and 10 really kind of brings things down. But then it hits the low point, Road does, on track 11, Baby Please Don't Go. One of those songs you kind of would expect from a theme album like this. Oh, I'm so lonely on the road, and you were so comforting to me, emotionally and physically. Please don't leave me. I need you so much. Please. Worst song on the album. Worst song on the album. And then we've got the Lament at track 12, 100 More Miles, which again, earlier I thought I heard horns. Now in this song, I swear I hear strings. Oh, we can never get to our destination. The road is so long and lonely. A little bit overwrought here. So, and then the album closes with track 13, a very appropriate and a solid cover of The Who's Magic Bus. So here's the thing with this album, as I'm going to sum up my viewpoints, my opinions, and give you my final rating. This album, the sum of the album is better than the parts. The total is better than the parts. If you break this down track by track, try to pull a song or two out and say, that's an awesome song, that's an awesome song, you're not really going to find much. But as a whole, taken 1 through 13, listening to the whole album, 1 through 13, the album retains strength when you listen to it all the way through. Picking and choosing, you're not going to be very happy. But if you sit down and listen to it, or get in your car, driving, road tripping, it's more effective, as most theme albums are, listening to it in its entirety instead of picking and choosing this track or that track. So I recommend you listen to Alice Cooper's Road. I think it's a good, solid album. I don't think it's a great album by any stretch, but you need, again, to listen to it track 1 through track 13. Do not pick and choose. For me, that's how I'm going to listen to it in the future. If I want to listen to this, I'm going to listen to it all the way through. It's not about picking out a hit single or a deep track. It is about the entire album from beginning to end. So, a recommendation, not the strongest ever, Probably not the strongest in the last couple months that I've given you for an album here on the Fortress of Rock, but still a recommendation nonetheless. Now, a song I can recommend wholeheartedly, which I think is going to be in contention for Song of the Year, with the album review coming up in a few weeks. Again, always wait till the end. Check out Wrap It Up when we discuss what's coming up in the next month. But I told you about this last week. Brian Setzer, of course, in the 80s, he was in the Stray Cats. And then he found newfound fame and fortune with the Brian Setzer Orchestra doing swing music. Now, luckily for us, he's gone back to rockabilly, what he does best. The album, The Devil Always Collects, is out now. The song that caught my attention and brought me back to Brian Setzer is Girl on the Billboard. This song is phenomenal. It is rock solid. It leaves me speechless because in its simplicity, yet the lyrical complexity, a little twist at the end. You can interpret the lyrical twist at the end how you choose to. But I think what you've got is a very upbeat, borderline raucous rock and roll song, a tale. We just talked about Alice Cooper and how his album Road is about days and nights on the road, on tour. Brian Setzer's Girl on the Billboard is about a truck driver obsessed with the picture of a glorious, beautiful, gorgeous woman on a billboard that he passes time and time again as he does his job across the country. And again, listen to the lyrics, but you can't ignore the hooks, the multiple level of hooks, guitar, lyric-wise. And then at the end, is there a hint of tragedy? You be the judge. I know how I interpret the last few lines of the song. You can tell me, get on the Facebook page. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think there is a whiff of tragedy there. Girl on the Billboard is a fantastic song. Cannot wait to give you my full album review in a couple weeks of The Devil Always Collects. Glad to have Brian Setzer back again in my collection. Girl on the Billboard, you have got to listen to the song. Highly, highly, highly recommend this track from Brian Setzer. Then we move on to the late, great Jimmy Buffett. And of course, the fact that he just passed away a few weeks ago still boggles my mind. One of those effervescent, party-hardy souls that you never think are going to leave us, like Sammy Hagar. Does anybody really truly believe Sammy Hagar is going to die? The man seems like he's immortal, but we know it's going to happen. And it will come out of the blue and it will shock us just like this with Jimmy Buffett. Now, luckily for us, he had a completed album, already done, polished, engineered, and 3 songs have been released posthumously to announce the upcoming arrival of Equal Strain on All Parts. So we're going to review right now all 3 songs here on the Fortress of Rock. Now I'm going to do them in order like they were presented to me on Spotify. And it just turns out that the order they were given to me kind of represents how much I like them. So the first song that comes up is Like My Dog. Clever, typical clever Jimmy Buffett lyrics comparing life with his dog to life with his wife or a woman. Brilliant, funny, no holds barred, in a way, not politically correct. Since we're talking about dogs, the word bitch might come up on occasion. Very, very good song. Typical Jimmy Buffett at his best. At his best. There are times when Jimmy Buffett tends to bore me, and I'm never going to proclaim to be a parrot head. I appreciate his legacy. I appreciate what he's done for music, especially live music. His concerts are definitely events. Fortunately, I got to see him a couple times over my life. So I'm very grateful and happy for that. But they're never going to be, for me personally, in my top 20 or 30 concerts I've ever seen. Kind of always felt like I was on the outside looking in because it wasn't my thing. It wasn't like me going to see Van Halen or me now going to see the Rival Sons or going to see Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers, bands that I am invested in completely and totally emotionally and musically. But I get other people are. I completely get it. And a song like My Dog is why Jimmy Buffett had that charm and that appeal. Great song. Check it out. Probably unless you're a woman. You might not like the fact that he basically says dogs are better than women in some respects. Just saying. Then next up is My Gummy Just Kicked In. What a great title. Funny title. The song doesn't quite live up to the promise of the title, but it's still pretty good. For a Jimmy Buffett song, it is very, very good. It's what you would expect. It has his humor, has his clever lyrics. Again, not quite as good as Like My Dog, in my humble opinion, but still definitely worth a listen. And then we get Bubbles Up, which is the side of Jimmy Buffett that I'm not a big fan of. Jimmy Buffett likes to put out a lot of songs about his laid-back philosophy on life. And no worries, just take it easy. Just sit in your hammock, have a margarita, and take it easy. And that's fine, that's great. Who doesn't want to do that? But there's only so many songs, so many mid-tempo songs you can take that cover that ground over and over and over again. And that is, unfortunately, for me at least, what Bubbles Up is. I am much more a fan of the sarcastic, dry wit Jimmy Buffett, which we get in the first two songs we talked about, Like My Dog and My Gummy Just Kicked In. The wistful Jimmy Buffett, it's okay, but it's not really my cup of tea in the end. But again, all three of these songs, if you take them as a group, as a whole, very, very solid precursor, a nice aperitif to what we should get from his last album. Assuming, of course, there's not a vault somewhere, buried on a beach, on an island, with a bunch more original stuff. But we'll assume Equal Strain on All Parts will be the last true Jimmy Buffett album. And of course, when it comes out, we will have a full review for you here on the Fortress of Rock. So we're halfway home, 2 segments down, 2 to go, and you know what's coming up next. The man, the myth, the legend, Doc Brown, firing up the rock and roll DeLorean. He's telling me, unlike last week where we had no birthdays to celebrate, what a bizarre trip that was last weekend. We do have some birthdays to discuss as we travel back in time to discuss significant moments in rock history, birthdays, classic song and album releases. It is time for I Want to Go Back after a quick promo break. Stay tuned. All right, now that we've looked at the current state of music in our breakdown segment, it is time to climb into the DeLorean and travel back in time to look back at moments in rock and roll history, birthdays, deaths, anniversaries of song and album releases. It is time for I Want to Go Back, our tribute to Eddie Money. Stay tuned. And as always, we're on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcasts. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Fortress of Rock here on September the 22nd, 2023. As always, very appreciative, glad that you are joining me on your Friday night or someday thereafter to talk about rock and roll for about an hour, hour and a half. Segment 3, of course, a very, very fun segment for you and for me as we travel back in time with Doc Brown to my left, navigating the rock and roll DeLorean through the time stream as we look back at birthdays, anniversaries, classic moments in rock history, but got to take some time, as we usually do at this point in each and every week's podcast, to give props, acknowledge our platforms and our sources for a lot of the ideas for the stories that you hear each and every week here on the Fortress of Rock. First, let us start with platforms. You've obviously found us somewhere you're listening right now, but you have options, you have choices, which is something sorely lacking in this world today that we all need. Easy options, easy choices. You can find the Fortress of Rock on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Of course, we have a Facebook presence. Be sure to check out the Facebook page because every weekend we have some fun stuff going on. Right now, every Friday night, kind of at the same time as this episode drops, each and every Friday night, we have what we call the Weekend Rock Project, where you simply have to come up with a song title based on the word or the theme that I give you. This weekend, we're looking for your favorite songs involving stereo, radio, record. Last week it was books and magazines. This week there's a media theme going on from last week to this week, and we're going to carry it on into next week. But this week, your favorite songs featuring the word radio, stereo, record, or something very close, very similar. Then, of course, every Sunday I try to get you new music. We need more new music. So every Sunday on our Facebook page, we post a video from YouTube, maybe just a lyric video, but it's going to be a great song nonetheless, a great new song. It is New Music Sunday on the Fortress of Rock's Facebook page. Check it out this coming Sunday. Not sure yet what the selection will be. Last weekend was a no-brainer with Jesse James Dupree. This week depends on what kind of lyrics get released, what kind of lyric videos, what kind of videos get released in the next day or so. Then, of course, we have our sources for the story ideas in segment 1, News of the World, and of course here in segment 3, I want to go back, our tribute to the late, great Eddie Money. 3 main sources used in various degrees week in and week out. thisdayinmusic.com, ultimateclassicrock.com, and the mighty Van Halen News Desk. So, of course, thank you to them for posting some great ideas, some great news tidbits, historical facts and figures. But keep in mind, what I do, I take those stories and those ideas, I try to add my opinions, my viewpoints, and yes, they are mine and mine alone when it comes to the opinions. Do not blame them, blame me for the opinions, because they're mine and I will not apologize. All right, let's start off with birthdays, since last week was just a big zero, a big negative nothing for birthdays. So at least we've got a few this week for September the 22nd in rock history. So let's get into it. September the 22nd, 1958, Joan Jett was born. Of course, we all know Joan Jett from the Runaways, the Blackhearts, still out there, still kicking ass. One of the greatest female rock singers, guitarists of all time. Cannot deny her influence. Joan Jett, born on this day in 1958. I don't know why I'm going to do this to myself, but this particular mention is self-inflicted torture for me. I've always mentioned that I grew up in the mid to late 70s. That was my formative period for learning about loving popular music and rock and roll. And I can still look back at those times and think about my K-Tel records, my Casey and the Sunshine Band records, listening to Casey Kasem on American Top 40 and remembering the glory when the Knack dominated the charts with My Sharona. But right around that time, within a year or so, the bane of my music existence occurred. Now, I've told you guys some of the songs that I hate. I mean, hate. And my parents always said, don't use the word hate. I hate about 10, 15 songs. I hate Open Arms by Journey. I hate Can't Fight This Feeling by REO Speedwagon. But number one on the Maestro's list of most hated songs of all time. Yes, it's her birthday. So we will acknowledge that on September the 22nd, 1956, Debbie Boone was born. And of course, I'm sure she's a wonderful human being, Pat Boone's daughter. But she gave us the most disgusting, egregious, insipid, nasty, awful, terrible ballad of all time, which was number one on the charts for 10 weeks. 10 interminable weeks when I listen to Casey Kasem. Here we go again, kids. Your number one song, Debbie Boone's You Light Up My Life. Keep reaching for the stars. Well, I wasn't reaching for the stars. I was reaching for a trash can to throw up because I was sick of You Light Up My Life. I'm still sick of it to this day. Thank God. Thank God I don't have to listen to it anymore. Nobody plays it anymore because Debbie Boone was a one-hit wonder. Arguably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, one-hit wonders of all time, but this song is cringe-inducing garbage. Happy birthday, Debbie. Born on this day in 1956. Oh, let's move on to some better stuff. September the 22nd, 1951. David Coverdale was born. Yes, David Coverdale, of course, of Whitesnake and Deep Purple. I would say a rock demigod. But of course, you cannot ignore his accomplishments. He was torn apart at various times in his career for being a minor league Robert Plant. It's okay. It's okay. He was successful. He still does things his own way. I don't know if Whitesnake will ever get back out on the road again, but he's always said he continues to create. He will continue to make new music. David Coverdale, for all the grief he got, one of those undersung, underappreciated rock and roll icons. Happy birthday to David Coverdale. Then finally, we move back to September the 22nd, 1943. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. Sorry. Couldn't resist. Yes. Another one-hit wonder. Not quite to the epic scale of Debbie Boone, but still a number one song in the U.S. at the time. Mickey. Tony Basil. Born on this day in 1943. So let's move on to anniversaries. September the 22nd, 2015. Somebody who filed a copyright on the song Happy Birthday got some bad news. That copyright was invalidated as a judge ruled that song must be in the public domain. So Happy Birthday is now free for all of us to sing, record, laugh about, joke about, do whatever you want with it. It is in the public domain. It is now free for everybody. It's kind of ridiculous to think that that song, one of the most commonplace songs you can think of, somebody tried to copyright. I guess it shouldn't surprise me, given my cynical nature. Going back to September the 22nd, 2001, we get a little somber here, as this marks the night back in 2001 when a tribute to heroes aired on most United States television networks, of course, a star-studded broadcast featuring a ton of music from very, very notable acts to raise funds for the survivors and the families of 9/11. Now, we don't normally talk about country music here. I am not a big country music guy, but I'll acknowledge it. You guys know I've done it in the past. I'll acknowledge any and all forms of music and the people who were the groundbreakers, who set the records. Maybe not rap, but I think I've even brought up rap. I know I've brought up Tupac and Eminem before, so we're all inclusive here on the Fortress of Rock. September the 22nd, 1990. The biggest selling country album ever was released and hit the United States album chart, more specifically. And that would be Garth Brooks' album, No Fences. September the 22nd, 1985. Still going strong to this day. Scheduled stop in Noblesville, Indiana here very, very soon. But back in 1985, the first Farm Aid concert took place. Champaign, Illinois. About 80,000 people attended the first Farm Aid. Of course, the core group, Neil Young, John Mellencamp, Willie Nelson, later joined down the road by Dave Matthews. How can you say anything bad about this, as they try to raise money for America's farmers? A more noble cause I cannot imagine. Now we jump all the way back to September the 22nd of 1972. David Bowie begins the North American leg of his Ziggy Stardust tour. And then finally, September the 22nd, 1969. Of course, Robbie Robertson recently passed away. But the self-titled album from the band was released on this day in 1969. Of course, they were Bob Dylan's backing band, went on to create their own legacy. I would say it was short-lived, but this album has been preserved in the National Archives for its significance, so they did something right. So that's going to do it for I Want to Go Back. Doc Brown is pulling the rock and roll DeLorean back into the Fortress garage, pulling up the moat over the drawbridge. Pulling up the moat. Way to go, Maestro. Pulling up the drawbridge over the moat. Locking everything down as we prepare to close out this episode of the Fortress of Rock, but there's still more to come. You know, you gotta stick around until the end as we talk about new music coming up on the Fortress in the next month. As once again, we pull the moat up over the drawbridge. I can't believe I said that. So ridiculous. Thank goodness I have my rock and roll brain to compensate for the fact that I can't speak very well. All right, kids, one more last quick, brief promo break, and we'll be right back. Wrap It Up is next. Well, we hope you enjoyed our trip back in time, looking back at the anniversaries, the classic moments in rock and roll history. But of course, the DeLorean works both ways. So now we have to move forward. The last segment here, as always, on the Fortress of Rock with me, the Maestro Kevin Crane. Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. It's all about the future. What's coming out here in the next month or two? What songs? What albums? What concert tours? That's why we call it Wrap It Up. Thanks to the fabulous Thunderbirds. Thanks to you for hanging out. Here comes our final segment. All right, it's segment 4 here on the Fortress of Rock, episode 110. You know what time it is. Each and every week for the past 2+ years, we wrap it up, our tribute to the fabulous Thunderbirds as we discuss the new music on the horizon that we'll be talking about and reviewing over the next month here on the Fortress of Rock. I am pleased and delighted to be your host. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Live music, at least from what I consider the summer months, is coming to a close. I will have my review of Megadeth live from Plymouth Speedway in Indiana next week. Episode 111, dropping September the 29th, will feature my review of Megadeth. In 2 weeks, episode 112, been talking about it here very enthusiastically over the last couple weeks. Brian Setzer's new album, The Devil Always Collects, will be the featured album review in 2 weeks here on the Fortress of Rock. In 3 weeks, we have slated the brand new album from Wilco, Cousin. That will be our featured album review in 3 weeks, episode 113, dropping on October the 13th. And again, surprisingly, much more in the way of new music than I expected here in the fall. As we get closer to Christmas, usually you get a couple big releases, but I dare I say that the fall schedule looks almost as tantalizing as the early summer schedule did. And I've talked about how disappointing most of that was. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Dave Grohl. But like I said, we've already got Brian Setzer and Wilco on the slate over the next 3 weeks. You know, you've got new Dawkins coming, you've got new Rival Sons, you've got new Rolling Stones, you've got new Jimmy Buffett. In terms of full albums, we'll have plenty to talk about. And I don't know if I mentioned, I cannot remember for last week, but we do have an additional concert review coming up in November. Now, I have talked about the fact that we will not be making the annual Fortress of Rock trek down to Indianapolis to see Jackal. Been doing that for pretty much the better part of a decade, but they changed the show date for some strange, bizarre reason. Usually they play Black Friday at the 8 Second Saloon down in Indy, but they moved it to Thanksgiving night. Not going to work for me and my friends. So we'll have to wait till 2024 to give you a review of Jackal. But Thanksgiving Eve, we're going to go see Chris Isaak. I know. You're going, what? How is that even close to being as cool as Jackal? Chris Isaak's awesome. He is funnier than hell. He has got a great stage presence. It will be a blast. And I'll have that review for you, of course. Ironically for Jackal, on Black Friday. Now, speaking of Jackal, last week we talked about Jesse James Dupree and his new album coming out next week, guaranteed. Your Fortress of Rock guarantee, which usually means about as much as a roll of toilet paper sitting out in a rainstorm. But next week, Jesse James Dupree's brand new song, Never Gets Old, will be one of the featured songs, along with Megadeth. We're not forgetting Megadeth, but of course, got to have some new music in there as well. So Jesse James Dupree's Never Gets Old will be featured next week on the Fortress of Rock. We've got new stuff from the Struts, Rockstar, looking at reviewing that as well next week. And finally, I think we're going to get around to that new Blackberry Smoke song, Dig a Hole. So those are the 3 songs, along with the Megadeth concert review, that I think we're really honing in on, trying to lock that down for next Friday night. Now we've got new stuff from, believe it or not, Foghat. I know, we talked about Bachman-Turner Overdrive in segment 1, and now we're talking about new stuff from Foghat. She's a little bit of everything. You might hear a review of that coming up in the coming weeks on the Fortress of Rock. We've still got some new stuff out there from Duran Duran that we could review. They released the second single off that dark gothic Halloween type album that they're releasing, with a few new songs but a lot of covers. Danse Macabre. Of course, the title track is out, but now they've released Black Moonlight. You know, I've got a soft spot for Duran Duran, so maybe, possibly here in the coming weeks, we review those 2 songs. Now, today, Friday, this is why I do this podcast every Friday night, is because now that the music industry years ago, for some reason, shifted from Tuesday to Friday, their big release date for albums and singles. I've always got to wait until Friday morning to find out what new stuff is out there in terms of songs. So, of course, 3 new tracks released today that we're going to be reviewing in the upcoming weeks. Of course, you know, if the Rival Sons put something out, we're going to review it. And we're probably going to love it. Second single from Lightbringer, their second album of 2023. Second single is Mercy. And I know I've got an unhealthy obsession right now with Rival Sons. Ever since I discovered them early on in 2022, opening for Greta Van Fleet, I can't get enough. I've already went out and bought their entire catalog, except for one. I'm still working on that one. Kind of hard to find. Might have to download the digital version and burn it. Yes, I still burn CDs. But I have picked up every other back catalog album and EP from Rival Sons. So Mercy will definitely be on the slate in the coming weeks. And of course, you know, right along with Rival Sons, I am not going to ever pass on reviewing a new song from Dokken. Second single from their upcoming album is Gypsy, just released today. And then it looks like, again, they're releasing new songs in odd ways. They tacked some new songs onto a deluxe edition of their last album. Now it looks like a brand new greatest hits compilation is coming out for Bush. And we might have a new song from that. Nowhere to Go But Everywhere. So look for a review of that song. Again, we're probably not going to review the full greatest hits album. We don't do that. Very rare exceptions. We review live albums, never review greatest hits albums. But we can review bonus tracks, new songs that they tack on to greatest hits albums. So that's what we're looking at here with Bush. Nowhere to Go But Everywhere should be coming up in the next month or so here on the Fortress of Rock. So that's going to do it. Again, as always, each and every week, I thank you for hanging out with me for 70, 80, 90 minutes of your lives on Friday night or Saturday, Sunday, whenever you end up checking out the podcast. I appreciate it. It's my passion. I love music. I've always loved music, rock and roll, live music. And I'm just very appreciative to share that energy and that passion with you. You know how this ends. Be safe. Be careful. If you're going to go out this weekend, watch college football, big games all over the place, all over the country. Have a designated driver. Be safe. And of course, love the one you're with. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. We will talk again in 7 days. Take care, everybody.